Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves...
It is being called the single greatest act of self-sabotage in the history of modern sports. A decision so bafflingly arrogant that it has turned the entire sports media landscape upside down. We are not just talking about a roster cut here. We're talking about a multi-million-dollar business decision that was driven by ego, resentment, and a desperate desire to protect the status quo. When Stephen A. Smith went on national television and effectively confirmed that USA Basketball refused to promote Caitlin Clark, he wasn't just sharing a hot take. He was exposing a deep-seated rot within the infrastructure of women's basketball. A culture of gatekeeping that prioritized the feelings of veterans over the explosion of the sport. The narrative they tried to sell us was one of fairness and experience. A story about a rookie who needed to wait her turn. But the reality, as exposed by the most powerful voice in sports media, is far darker. It is a story about a clique of established stars and administrators who looked at the biggest golden goose to ever walk onto a basketball court and slammed the door in her face because they didn't like that she skipped the line. This is the story of how USA Basketball fumbled the bag, why they did it, and why the backlash is going to haunt them for decades. To truly understand the gravity of this mistake, you have to go back to the state of the WNBA before Caitlin Clark arrived. For 28 years, the league has been fighting for survival. It has been a product that, despite the immense talent of the women playing, struggled to capture the imagination of the general public. We are talking about a league that has reportedly lost money every single year of its existence. Subsidized heavily by the NBA. The players have spent decades flying commercial, playing in second-tier arenas, and begging for media coverage that rarely came. Then, like a lightning bolt, Caitlin Clark happened. She wasn't just a great college player. She was a cultural phenomenon. She was doing things that we had never seen before. Pulling up from the logo, commanding the attention of millions, and selling out arenas that had been empty for years. When she declared for the draft, the ticket prices for the Indiana Fever skyrocketed by thousands of % before she had even signed a contract. The writing was on the wall. She was the savior the league had been waiting for. Any rational business, any marketing team with a pulse would have looked at this situation and realized they had won the lottery. The Olympics were coming up in Paris, a global stage where the eyes of the world would be watching. The formula was simple. You put Caitlin Clark on that plane. You put her on the team. It doesn't matter if she plays 5 minutes a game. You put her there because she brings the cameras. You put her there because she brings the sponsors. You put her there because she is the bridge between the niche audience you have and the global audience you want. But USA Basketball decided to throw that winning lottery ticket in the trash. When the roster was announced and Clark's name was missing, the sports world gasped. It didn't make sense. It defied logic. And that is when Stephen A. Smith stepped in to explain exactly what was happening behind the scenes. Stephen A. Smith didn't just criticize the move. He dissected the arrogance behind it. He pointed out that the decision-makers at USA Basketball were operating in a bubble, completely detached from the reality of the sports business. He confirmed that they were hiding behind basketball criteria, talking about defense, size, and experience while completely ignoring business criteria. In no other industry would you hide your best-selling product in the warehouse because the senior employees felt it wasn't fair. Smith drew a scathing comparison to the 1992 Dream Team. He reminded everyone that when the USA sent the greatest team ever assembled to Barcelona, they didn't leave Magic Johnson or Larry Bird at home because of their age or health issues. They brought them because they were icons. They brought them to sell the game. USA Basketball had the chance to create the women's version of the Dream Team, a squad that would have been talked about for generations. Instead, they chose to create a team that was technically profound but culturally irrelevant to the casual fan. The core of Smith's argument, and the part that really stings for the WNBA establishment, is the accusation of jealousy. This is the uncomfortable truth that nobody in the league wants to admit, but it is screamingly obvious to everyone on the outside. There is a mean girls energy that has permeated the league's reaction to Clark. You have veterans who have played for 10 or 15 years, who have won championships and MVPs in relative obscurity, watching a 22-year-old girl come in and get a $28 million shoe deal with Nike. They are watching her get private security. They are watching the chartered flights that they fought for suddenly appear because she is there. It is human nature to feel resentment, but professional leadership is supposed to rise above that. Instead, the Olympic Selection Committee seemingly leaned into it. Smith hinted heavily that the roster was constructed not just to win gold because, let's be honest, Team USA could win gold with their B team, but to maintain the hierarchy. By leaving Clark off, they were sending a message. They were telling the world that the WNBA is a meritocracy based on seniority, not popularity. But that is a lie. Professional sports is entertainment. It is a star-driven business. By refusing to promote Clark, they weren't protecting the integrity of the game. They were protecting their own egos. They were circling the wagons to ensure that the spotlight stayed on the right people, the people who had paid their dues. But as Smith screamed on First Take, nobody cares about your dues if they aren't watching the game. Let's talk about the fairness excuse because it is the shield that USA basketball has been hiding behind for months. They argued that players like Diana Taurasi, Brittany Gurrier, and Breanna Stewart had committed to the national team program for years. They attended the training camps. They played in the qualifiers. Therefore, it would be unfair to cut one of them for a rookie who hadn't been part of the system. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. But dig a little deeper, and it falls apart. The Olympics isn't a participation trophy for perfect attendance. It is a showcase. You take the 12 players who give you the best chance to win and the best chance to grow the sport. Is it fair that Caitlin Clark drives 400% higher ratings than anyone else? Maybe not, but it's the reality. Stephen A. Smith hammered this point home. Life isn't fair and business definitely isn't fair. The NBA wasn't fair to the veterans in the 80s when they pushed Magic and Bird to the front. They did it because they were dying. The WNBA has been on life support financially for decades. And they finally found a cure only to reject it because it didn't taste like the medicine they were used to. The backlash to this decision was immediate and severe. But what made it worse was the arrogance of the response from the women's basketball community. Instead of acknowledging the fans' frustration, many analysts and former players doubled down. They called the fans newbies. They told people they didn't understand the game. This gatekeeping is exactly what Stephen A. Smith warned against. You cannot invite people to the party and then get mad when they ask for the music they like. The old guard of the WNBA seemed to take pleasure in the fact that Clark was snubbed. It felt like a hazing ritual. Welcome to the big leagues, kid. You sit at home while we go to Paris. But the joke was on them because without Clark, the buzz around the Olympic team evaporated. Sure, they won the gold medal. They are a dynasty. But did it move the needle? Did it create new fans? No. It was just another tournament that happened while the world was talking about why the most famous player wasn't there. This refusal to promote Clark goes beyond just the Olympic roster. It bleeds into the way the league has handled her entire rookie season. Stephen A. Smith has pointed out the deafening silence from the league office when Clark was getting physically assaulted on the court. We all saw the Kennedy Carter hip check. It wasn't a basketball play. It was a cheap shot. And while physical play is part of the game, the discourse surrounding it was toxic. You had players and media personalities suggesting that Clark needed to get beat up to learn her place. This atmosphere of hostility was enabled by the leadership's refusal to protect and promote their star. If this were the NBA and a rookie Michael Jordan was getting headhunted, the commissioner would have stepped in immediately. But in the WNBA, there was a hesitation, a reluctance to offend the veterans. This hesitation confirms Smith's theory. The league is paralyzed by its own internal politics. They are so afraid of upsetting the OGs that they are willing to let their golden ticket get battered and bruised both physically and reputationally. The racial component of this story is uncomfortable, but Stephen A. Smith went there as he always does because you cannot tell the full story without it. He highlighted that there is a racial tension underlying the Caitlin Clark hate. You have a league that is predominantly black and has been carried by black women for decades without receiving the credit or compensation they deserve. Then comes a white girl from Iowa who suddenly gets everything they ever wanted. The shoe deal, the commercials, the fame. It is easy to see where the animosity comes from. But Smith's argument is that while the feelings are valid, the business decision to exclude her is still wrong. You don't fix historical inequities by sabotaging the future. A rising tide lifts all boats. If Caitlin Clark blows up the league's revenue, everyone gets paid more. Everyone gets better travel. Everyone gets more exposure. By making this a race war or a culture war instead of a business opportunity, the WNBA shot itself in the foot. USA Basketball had a chance to unify the narrative in Paris to show a diverse team united by greatness. Instead, by leaving her off, they deepened the divide. They allowed the toxicity to fester. Let's look closer at the basketball criteria that the committee claimed was the sole reason for her exclusion. They said she wasn't physical enough. They said her defense was a liability. They said she turned the ball over too much. Stephen A. Smith dismantled this by looking at the actual stats. Yes, she had turnovers because she had the ball in her hands every single play for a bad team, but she was also leading the league in assists. She was generating more points for her team than almost anyone else in the league. And let's be real about the defense argument. Since when has Team USA needed lockdown defense to beat teams? They're already blowing out by 30 points. The gap between the USA and the rest of the world is closing, but it's not that closed. They could have afforded to hide her on defense for a few minutes a game. The basketball reasons were a smoke-yacht screen. They were a convenient excuse to justify a personal grievance. They wanted to prove that we can win without her. And yes, they proved it. But at what cost? The financial malpractice here is staggering. We need to talk about the TV networks. NBC pays billions for the rights to broadcast the Olympics. They want stars. They want storylines. They want ratings. Stephen A. Smith reported that NBC executives were likely furious behind the scenes. They had the chance to market the face of American sports, and instead they were given a roster of players that the general public, let's be honest, couldn't pick out of a lineup. This isn't disrespect to the talent of AIA Wilson or Breanna Stewart. They are incredible players, but they are not cultural icons in the way Clark is.
Fame is a weird thing.
It's not always about who is the best player.